What's going on, guys? This is Blaming Diplomacy. Today, we're going to be walking through the latest Joe Biden press conference. All right, so Joe Biden just went live and he is doing a press conference after the NATO summit. And I'll say a couple things. The first 30 minutes, to his credit, he seemed a lot more there. I'm assuming it was rehearsed, but give credit where credit's due before we tear this apart like we're about to. He did come out a little bit more sharper than he has been, especially at the beginning. Whether or not he got juiced up or what everybody likes to say, I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but definitely a difference there. As the night goes on and as he starts getting asked questions, which is a whole nother thing I'll get into, um, definitely a scene to behold for sure. So let's get into it. We're going to jump in. I'm going to skip around. Still working on how to make this streamlined. So bear with me as I jump through some of the minutes to get to the points that I want to talk to y'all through. Uh, but first, we're going to jump into this part where he's talking about Putin invading Ukraine, how he knew months in advance, which is that alone is interesting because he says that. But if that were the case, if he really was so aware ahead of time, why didn't he call Putin? Why wasn't there a stopping? I think something that former President Trump has said many times, and I agree with him. Now, whether it's because, he's a maniac or because he is just tried and true, thick-skinned, or he's not afraid to hit the button, whatever the reason is, the truth of it is that Putin would not have invaded if Trump was president because he didn't try it when he was president. No one likes to talk about this, but the big thing that stimulated that was the Afghan pullout. It showed weakness, it showed vulnerability. There's a reason why China has been eyeing Taiwan more aggressively. They've done more practices and training sessions in the China Sea since Afghanistan happened. The Afghan pullout was disastrous, and that's really what stimulated Putin. Putin has no fear of Joe Biden. I want to be very clear about that. No fear of Joe Biden. Okay, I don't know the game Putin's playing over there in Russia, but it definitely ain't one where he's scared of Joe Biden. So, real quick, I'm just going to share my screen again. This is very rusty, but I'm working on technology and stuff. I just wanted to get this out of here live so that y'all can have someone to talk to about the rundown of it all. So let's get into this. All right, we're going to share our entire screen here. I'm going to be up in the corner. I don't even know if you can see me. If you cannot, that's fine. We'll go ahead and blow this up then. All right, let's go ahead and listen to this.
States to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance. And it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told Putin, and I quote, do whatever the hell you want. In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. So, two things. One, way out of context. And of course, this is politics. That's going to happen. There's going to be some sound biting, whatever. We get it. A couple things just to extrapolate that. And by no means am I a huge Trump fan. I'm really not. I've had this conversation with many people. I think his personality and his character are not really there. His policies were good, and he did keep us out of wars, right? And so we have to think inside of that context as well. Now, telling Putin to do whatever the hell he wants, he did because Putin wouldn't do anything. Like Trump, he told Putin that, and Putin didn't do anything while he was president, right? Because there's more to that conversation. It's do whatever the hell you want, but if you try something that I don't like, I'm going to push the big button, right? And so understand that like there's a level of like I dare you in that. And of course, we're talking about foreign policy and starting wars. Sometimes statements like that can be more instigative than resolutionary in nature, meaning it can like probe the person to do something rather than go, oh crap, this dude's not playing. But in Trump's case, Trump's been doing tough business deals forever. He knows how to make his point in a way that allows the other person to make a decision. So both people feel like they're making a choice here, right? And so that's important. And also genius. Well, it was. It was genius. We have a bad habit of making the word like positive words like brilliant and genius synonymous with like good morality, and it's not. Genghis Khan was brilliant. Dude was a mass murderer of all kinds. Okay, uh, Julius Caesar, brilliant, mass murderer. He was just depraved as all get out. Adolf Hitler, brilliant, brilliant I mean, he turned an entire country against a whole people group, multiple people groups. Brilliant, horrible human being, right? And I could get soundbited for saying that. You understand? I can like Adolf was brilliant. Boom, soundbite, put it on reels, take it. That's how this is done, right? But context matters. That was smart of Putin to look for the hole in the American foreign policy and then attack. That was smart. Not wrong. Not wrong. All right, let's get into this. And just to clarify, I'm gonna get soundbited anyways if someone sees this, but just to clarify, I'm not saying that it wasn't wrong for him to invade Ukraine. I'm saying that he's not wrong in that it was a genius move. It was. Wrong? Yes. Dumb? No.
It was one.
Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership.
Let's get some questions.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Oh,
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president. But I think she's not qualified to be president. Let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
the Biden that beat Trump in 2020 is not the man standing in front of you right now. I say this a lot when I'm talking politics with people. Now, do I think from like from a political standpoint, is Joe Biden a bad man? Yeah, I think that he was, even Kamala Harris, when she was running for no one remembers this. When she was running for president, in what was it, I want to say it was 2016. 2020. Sorry, 2020. She straight up brought up legislation that he was okay with in the 80s and stuff with segregation. Like Joe Biden, if you look at his policies, he is a staunch racist. I mean, like literally, like I know Trump says things and he doesn't think through what he's saying, but his policies have never been racially suppressive. This man is not a good man. That being said, I do feel bad for him. I feel bad for him. Like this isn't right. Like I honestly, I think this is kind of sick. Like the fact that his family is forcing him to stay there, that he is not being encouraged to step down, that people are just white lying to him because he has this ambition. Honestly, I feel bad for him. Like I don't think it's right. Like no, regardless of your past, regardless of your morality, regardless of what I think about you, I don't think somebody that in his mental state should be forced to do something like this or should be put in this position. I think it's kind of sick. Honestly, it's kind of sick, and not sick towards him, sick towards everybody else that's bribing him on. I think they have issues. They have serious mental issues.
Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now.
Very different. Very different. Some of those presidents hadn't gained traction yet. They didn't have low numbers because they dropped almost 10 points on every poll literally 15 days ago. Also, they didn't have bad policies. And some of them had not good and decent, but they didn't lose support throughout their presidency like you have. The why matters, not just the what. Like when we look at policy movement or polls or voting or whatever, we can't just look at the what's going on right now. We have to ask ourselves why. What is the substance? The substance, Mr. President, is not bueno. It's not bueno.
Moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up.
What are you hearing now? All of that happened, Joe. All of that happened. It's just in the past week or so that inflation has started to come down. Something he talked about earlier was lowering of car prices and stuff like that. That's not happening because you did something about it. He has not put forth any policy to help suppress commerce prices. Okay, what has happened is people, due to inflation, cannot afford the cars, and so car sales have plummeted. It's basic. Okay, if you can take any elective in high school, please, if you're in public school, for the love of everything, take an economics class. Supply and demand. The less demand, the supply grows. They got to get rid of the cars. They drop prices. This is an inflation-induced price drop. Yes, it's good for us because we'll be able to afford them, but the why, the substance, is not good. We spend as much on, he said, more debt. He said, what are people saying now? Dude, we literally spend as much, we spend as much on the interest of our deficit as a country as we do on defense spending. That's insane. So yeah, all this did happen. And he brings up jobs a lot, but the thing is that these jobs aren't combating inflation. It's okay to like hyperinflate unemployment rates lowering, and then that's cool, right? Or I guess underinflate, or whatever the terminology for that would be. That's okay. Like I get like giving people jobs. People need jobs, right? They want to start a career, they want to put food on the table. But to say that because you're giving more jobs that things are better is not necessarily true, especially if the inflation is not like, if someone gets a $10 an hour job and they still can't pay rent, or a $15 an hour job and they still can't pay rent, that, yeah, the job, it's cool they have a job, but like, you're not putting them in a good spot financially. Now they're working and they're away from their kids and they're still getting kicked out of their house. Like, you see what I mean? Like it's much more complicated than that. And I understand his politics, and he's pointing out some of the things that the administration has done or has happened during the administration. But that's the thing about the bell curve, though. He got this position right after the lockdowns and the cusp of COVID, and things went really down. Of course, they're going to start to come back up, even if they're not going to be as good as they could have been or should have been without the COVID pandemic and all the lockdowns and everything that happened. You're still going to see that curve. It's still going to go up to the mountain. Now, the mountain is not going to be as big as the mountain before, or in the heart of the 60s and 70s when things were exploding in this country and all that stuff, but because of inflation and all the things that are going on that are negative. But I see this a lot, and I saw this with President Trump too. So here's me not being biased. When people take credit for something that is naturally occurring, like that's disingenuous, right? Now, inflation, employment rates obviously matter. Dollar per hour, and comparing that to spending per groceries or commerce items, cars, mortgages, houses, things like that. Those things you can definitely say, okay, we wrote policies, we did things, we put the economy in a position to be positive. But the idea that like as businesses start to open up, people are trying to get back on their feet. Entrepreneurship is like really hot right now. People are going to start giving people jobs. And so yeah, employment rate's going to go up for sure. But if that's not matched by good economics, you're not doing anybody a service. You're just patting yourself on the back by one metric and not looking at all the other crap that's happening right now. And all presidents do that sometimes. So again, it's not just Biden, but realizing that like that statement's really disingenuous. And everything he just said has happened. So, anyways,
Now, the mainstream economists, 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. And under my plans so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, things are going to get much better.
oh my.
We can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fair. Like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows.
I agree with that. I agree with that. When the middle class does well, boom, good job. That's correct. One for Biden. When the middle class does well, and then we're able to give them enough money, and we're able to create culture and an environment and where money is given to support lower class income holders or income generators, and they're able to get on their feet and rise up to the middle class. We have the biggest middle class in the whole nation or the whole world. Absolutely. Middle class doing well, and then bottom up from the poverty line, minority line, low economic standards, all of that, and giving them an environment where they can get jobs, feed their families, start careers, climb up the corporate ladder, get, job security, well-paying job where they can feed their families and inspire their children, and all the cool things that come with that. Absolutely. Head on. You go. There we go. There we go.
More of a shot, the wealthy do well. The wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
Something that really needs to be pointed out is, so my mom, right? So I grew up in a single mom household, and we really scratched the beginning. 12 people in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, ramen noodles with cut up deli meat and like hamburger helper, sometimes without the hamburger, was like dinner. Okay, like rice and beans. Like I grew up very much just like trying to make sure we had full bellies before we went to sleep. I've watched her work her butt off without a college degree, mind you, to get to the position that she has in her company, and she's crushing it, right? It's taken her since she got her first pest control job when I was 2. And so it's taken her 26 years to get to where she's at. She's worked her tail off for almost 3 decades, okay? I have seen what happens to her taxes when she hits a new tax bracket. The idea that the rich are not paying their fair share of taxes is baloney. Now, are there certain tax codes that allow people to avoid some taxation, like when they invest in another company, invest in other things? Yes, but the thing is, you can't just get rid of those tax codes, because little people like me, for example, with my coaching company, I use those tax benefits, and to get rid of those would not allow small businesses to grow, because they would never make a profit. They wouldn't be able to tie back into the business, because they'd put the $5,000 they made that year back into their business, and they'd owe taxes on it, and then they would be tax deducted by the IRS and just demangled. And so rich people do pay their taxes. I know people don't like talking about that, but they do. Yeah, they definitely do.
Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies, have control of their bodies.
She has done nothing in that department. I'm not here to discuss Roe v. Wade on this episode. I'm not here to talk about any of that. Isolated. Kamala Harris has done jack crap to help women in their bodies in any facet, whether that's encouraging pro-choice or that's supporting women and giving them good support for encouraging a healthy pregnancy with federal funds if they need it, if they're alone or whatever they need help with. All she does is laugh on interviews. So there's that.
Her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate, she was really good.
She was a terrible prosecutor. Do you know that so many people don't know so much about Kamala Harris? And I mean, I don't care if she was purple with orange hair. I don't care if she looked like Donald Trump. I don't care. Track record. Track records matter. Okay. It's cool if someone has a good track record, and then and then visually, being a woman, being the first African American vice president, female vice president, close to the presidential office, cool. All that's great, especially, but the track record matters first. It needs to be track record, and then ethnic group and gender, and how that encourages the general populace. Track record first, then that. Not that, then track record. That's how we get into bad situations. Okay. Like Tulsi Gabbard, even Michelle Obama. Like Michelle Obama would be a much better candidate. Like she actually has some good track record, what she's done with like the food, educational system, nutrition in schools. Love she's done some pretty cool things, Michelle Obama. I'll give her that. I don't agree with everything on policies and morality, but like that's a much better choice, right? So just to play that fair, Kamala Harris has a horrible track record. She incarcerated so many minority people, blacks and Hispanics, while she was the DA. So many. She let so many murderers off the hook when she said she was going to crack down on that. She incentivized people staying in prison so that they could use it for cheap labor instead of letting them go. This is all documented online. You can go look it up if you think I'm lying. She is an evil person with her own ambition and agenda, and she uses the emotional pullings of hot topics like women's choice and minority groups, Black Americans, low income household. Like she says the hot words in her debates and in her speeches, but she's using it. She's selfish. She's not here for you. She don't like you. Okay. She she, she doesn't like us. She don't like us. Okay. She has her own ambitions, and she will use whatever tools necessary to achieve her ambitions. Okay. Everything he just said was wrong. Just based off of like her, it's this way. If it was like one hiccup, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days, like it's not. It's just not. It's just if I was looking for a track record with a couple brown smudges, that'd be one thing. But her track record is like it's like dipped in mud. It's bad. It's just bad.
I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning, I made no bones about that. She's qualified to be president. That's why I picked her.
No, 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 Joe, you picked her because in the wake of George Floyd, you thought it would help get you more votes. Again, emotional catering to reach your own agenda. So many things would go wrong if that happened, my friends. So many things. Sure, she might have a decent smile, and yes, Trump is outlandish and aggressive and doesn't think before he says, and he says things that he doesn't mean, and he says things he does mean that are stupid. 100%. But I just no, Joe. Just no. All right, guys. So that's the full recap of the debate. Those are the kind of the points that I wanted to highlight, or sorry, of the end of the conference, his speech there, his live speech. Overall thoughts. I thought the first couple, 30 minutes or so, I thought he was very awake and very clear, which I think for Democratic voters is going to be kind of impressive. I think he started to stutter a bit towards the end. He called Kamala Vice Trump. I know he was trying to make a joke, like I wouldn't want Trump to be my vice president, but just like it just didn't come out right, as a lot of the things he says don't come out right. So to his credit, I think, talking about middle class, growing and then working from the bottom up with lower income and poverty, I thought that was really good. I agree with that. I think most Americans agree with that. It's just the substance about how you go about doing that. And then I think everything else was just bad. It was just a lot of lies. I thought he was trying to make points to make himself look better, but you can easily just Google what he said and see that he was just firing at himself. I think he put his own foot in his mouth quite a few times. And so I think some Democratic voters that were a little on the edge might be like, okay, whatever. Okay. He's all right. Right. If they really don't like Trump, it's like, oh, okay. He's all right. I think for very logical thinkers really taking their time to listen to this whole thing, I think that he has just created more fear, and concern. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Put it in the comment section below. Are you team Biden, team independent team. I don't care. This is dumb. Why are we in the Matrix? Is Ashton Kutcher, is this punked? Is Ashton Kutcher going to come out during a presidential debate and say, ha, joke, these aren't even your presidents? What's going to be said? Who knows? But I would love to know your thoughts. Until then, I will see y'all in the next one.